Welcome to Season 2 of the Crypto Pulse podcast, your ultimate guide to the world of crypto, Bitcoin, and world economics. We're here to guide you through the crypto universe with thought-provoking topics, in-depth knowledge, and information to help you make informed decisions. We'll also be interviewing some of the best minds in the industry, such as CEOs of crypto projects, traders, economists, authors, and development teams from around the globe. And now for the episode.
Leemon Baird, thank you so much for joining us on the Crypto Pulse podcast. You're definitely one of the most requested guests of late, so we're excited to finally get you on the show to talk a little bit about Hedera and your background and what you're doing. So maybe you could just firstly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into working in the crypto sphere in the first place.
Oh, yeah. And thanks. It's great to be here with you. I appreciate you letting me be on your show with you. This is great. So in 2012, I think, there was a math problem I was working on. And I just like to work on math problems. This is one of my hobbies. There's some problems I've been working on for decades, and I know I'm never going to solve them, but they're just fun to work on, you know? But occasionally, I do solve problems. So in 2012, for whatever reason, some certain problems just start to appeal to me. And I was wondering, is it possible for a bunch of computers to come to an agreement very, very fast, but with very, very high security, ABFT. So asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance means that it's the very highest level of security. Most blockchains don't have that. And the reason they don't is because it would be very slow. We've known for decades how to get that high level, but it would be very, very slow. So I was just interested in it because it's a fun math problem. It just seems like it would be hard to get both security and speed at the same time. And so I was looking into that. And it wasn't that I wanted to improve blockchain. It wasn't that I really wanted to do anything with it. Certain math problems are fun. It's my hobby. and so I worked on it. It's one of many problems I work on. And what I would do is I would work really hard on it, explore it very carefully, and be able to really prove to myself, no, it is not possible. You cannot have both speed and security. You have to choose one of the two. You just can't have them both at the same time. And I'd set it aside. But then, after a while, it would come back and it would kind of gnaw at me, and I would pick it up and I would play with it again. And I'd say, yeah, okay, look at it this way and twist it around. And okay, here is really why it really is truly impossible. You can't do it. And I would set it aside. And this went on for a while. And in 2015, I realized, wait a second, all these computers are talking to each other. Well, you're sending these messages. If you just included in your message a little tiny note saying what was the last message you received and the last message you created, just two little hashes, that's it. Then when everybody collects all these messages, they would actually get a complete history of how we all talk to each other. And if you looked at that history, you would know how information flowed through the network, and you could run one of those 30-year-old ABFT super secure algorithms purely in your head with zero additional communication. So instead of being incredibly slow with millions of messages going back and forth to vote, instead, you have zero messages going back and forth to vote. It's just virtual voting purely locally, purely in your head. You instantly know the answer, and you get all of those security results that we've known about for decades, but you basically get them for free. It's just virtual voting. You're just gossiping about gossip, and that's it. So that was kind of fun to realize that. And so Mance Harmon and I have been starting companies together for 20 years. We said, you know what? This would be a great blockchain. And it isn't even a blockchain, but it'd be a great DLT, a great ledger. And so we started a company to do it as a private ledger. There's a chicken and egg problem in starting a big public ledger and getting really big people involved. And so we started with the private ledger to prove it out. We got some customers for that. We got some traction on that. And then in 2017, we said, okay. Actually, in 2016, we said, okay. But in 2017, we actually incorporated it. Let's do a company that will be a public ledger. Let's actually create a public ledger. And so we did. And so in 2018, we announced it to the world, and we ended up with an amazing set of council members, because what we realized is that it's not enough to just have this cool algorithm that is incredibly fast and ABFT. So, we're way over 10,000.
Could you just tell our listeners what ABFT is? Because there'll be a few that aren't familiar with that.
So asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance means it's the very highest level of security. Basically what it means is that you cannot shut down the network by shutting down just one node. So right now, some of the very fastest blockchains that are out there claim to be extremely fast because there is one computer that's in charge that gets to make all the decisions.
Centralization, right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
So they take turns every few seconds. Yeah. So you could say, well, it's not centralized because we all get a chance to take a turn to being the boss. Well, yeah, but during those few seconds, it's what you just said. It's centralized, which means if you did a DDoS attack, which is a distributed denial of service attack, if you had computers all over the internet that you had compromised and they just flooded one computer with packets, you could close down that one computer. And with a leader-based system, sure, you're really fast when no one's attacking you. But if they attack the leader, that shuts down the entire network for the few seconds that one's the leader. And then when the next one becomes leader, because they know who the next leader is going to be, they just shift their attack to the next leader. And they can shut down the network for hours for as long as the attack goes on. That's a problem. Obviously, if you have enough of power, that you can flood every single computer in the network and shut it down, then of course you'll shut down the network. But you shouldn't be able to shut down a network by shutting down just one computer. That's very fragile. And so other ledgers that claim to be super fast have that problem. Then you have proof of work ledgers that don't have that problem. Yay, that's good. But they're not super fast, and they have an enormous carbon footprint. They use a lot of electricity. But if you do the Hashgraph algorithm, then you get both. You get this security where it is totally decentralized. Nobody is the leader even for a second. There is no one to shut down that shuts down the whole network. And you have guarantees, mathematical guarantees. We will come to conclusions and we'll all come to the same conclusion, even if bad guys control the internet and have control of firewalls. They can't make us come to different conclusions. And it is super fast. We've slowed it down to 10,000 transactions a second. Super, super fast. It's about as fast as the internet could be and still be ABFT. It is just, that's the trade-off that we solved.
Leemon, I love that you've come to where you are now off the back of trying to prove to yourself that a mathematical problem was unsolvable. I love that you found the solution and have found a way to commercialize it. I think that's incredible. I guess I'd like to just talk a little bit about the success of the blockchain since you launched, because obviously you've had a huge couple of years and you've got a number of really great partnerships. I'm sort of intrigued to hear from you about how some of these private organizations are currently using what you've built and what you've kind of learned from that.
Yeah. So it started with trying to find the counsel. So it wasn't just that it was a good technical consensus algorithm. What we really wanted was true decentralized governance that you can trust. And a lot of ledgers say, oh, we have decentralized governance. Anyone who has a token can vote. But can you trust that? Do you know what whales control it? And there have been things in the news about L2s that have had problems and other things that have had problems, where you have anyone who has a coin can vote, but then the whale dominates everything. Or you find there's a back door and someone else can dominate the whales, which is maybe even weirder.
Right. Sounds like the real world.
That's a problem. What you want is transparency in your governance. You want to have governors you can trust, and you want to know who the governors really are, and you want to watch them governing. And so we had a radically different approach. What we said is we're going to get some of the biggest organizations in the world, universities and companies that are absolutely enormous, that have a reputation to protect. And we're going to get them to together govern this thing. And they will be on different continents, in different industries, different types of things, universities versus companies. They will be in different markets. They will be under different governments. No one government can control them. And they will debate and make decisions, and we'll publish the minutes of their debates. It will be transparent. You'll know who they are. It'll be set up in a way that if they do something bad, you will know it. It will destroy their reputation. And they act as checks and balances on each other. And so we got some of the biggest names you've ever heard of. We have Google and IBM and LG Electronics. We have a whole bunch of banks, the biggest bank in all of Africa, the oldest bank in South Korea, one of the biggest financial institutions in Japan, and a household name for payments in Australia. We have one of the world's biggest law firms. All these different kinds of things We have Avery Dennison, which is into tracking billions of items and now tokenizing them. I love that. So we have all of these governors that you can see who they are. They have a reputation to protect. They act as checks and balances on each other. And we were able to get that. And honestly, in 2017, that was just crazy to say, yeah, we're going to get IBM and Google on our council. But that's what happened. And they were attracted by the technology, and they were attracted by the good governance that was going to happen. And they wanted to be part of it. And they had use cases. So Avery Dennison's use case is just mind-boggling. They have billions of items that they want to track. And they're going to do it with tokens. They're going to do it with recording things through HCS. And they're going to doing it on Hedera. They're not just governing, they're actually building on Hedera. And we have some amazing use cases on Hedera.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of those use cases. And I'd also just be interested in, just to backtrack, when it was a private blockchain, what were some of the original use cases as well?
Sure. So the original blockchain was things like a group of credit unions wanted to, as a group, have a ledger that they would just have as a private ledger of their own. And we're open sourcing the software. Lots of people will be able to do private ledger things with us, and you can do it for free, or you can have us help you, whatever. We have lots of interesting things. Private ledgers are still an interesting thing, although it's interesting. The world has been moving in a large way from private ledgers to public ledgers, which I found it to be interesting. But I think in the long term, what you find is we'll have both. And so we start with the private ledgers. There are use cases where several entities that don't necessarily trust each other want to jointly create a private ledger, but just have it for their own use. And that's the first uses of Hashgraph were for that. But of course, the real world changing thing is when you have a public ledger that anybody on the planet can use. And that's what Hedera is. And so we've gotten tons of use cases building on Hedera. I will point out, though, that there's an interesting hybrid. People talk about L2s, which is one way, but this is an AppNet is sort of the opposite of an L2, where you could build a private network, truly private. You and your friends are running the computers. No one else in the world can see what you're doing. You encrypt all of your transactions. You don't let other people into your network. It's truly a private network. But you can use Hedera to get trust for your network, to build the trust. And the way you do it is you encrypt all your transactions and you feed all of them through Hedera, and Hedera does the consensus. And then your nodes just have to process those transactions in order. By doing that, you get all the advantages of a private network. You get the speed of a private network. You get the privacy of a private network, the control of a private network, but you get the trust of Hedera. And you have the full trust of the Hedera network giving you consensus. And you have records being kept forever of those encrypted transactions if you ever want to go back and prove things in a court, which is also a nice thing. So you can have the best of both worlds with that. But really right now, most of the traction I see is in public networks. Public ledgers are the exciting thing right now.
I was reading a little bit about some of the organizations that you're working with. What is probably the most popular use case that you're seeing at the moment out of everything?
It's interesting. We're seeing real traction in several different areas, which is good for the industry. So I do think that the industry now is maturing to the point where actual companies want to solve actual problems on the ledger. It isn't just fun and we're playing with each other. There's some of that too. You have NFTs that are just pictures and it's kind of funny, and you have just games that people do, like CryptoKitties originally. Those are fun. But we're now seeing the real world starting to use it. So, for example, I told you about the Atma project, atma.io. This is what Avery Dennison is doing. They're tracking billions of objects, which is mind-boggling. And you can use Hedera then to make it transparent, to make it immutably recorded forever, and to bring trust to some of this tracking stuff. And we have other people that are tracking things. This isn't just Atma. For example, there's a company that for a long time has now been tracking COVID vaccines. You have those little vials that you need to keep refrigerated. And if at any point in its life it was ever warm, then it stops working as well. And, people can die from that. That's really a big deal. And so what they have are freezers. As it goes from spot to spot, it's in these refrigerators or freezers that have electronic thermometers in them that are recording the temperature and recording it to Hedera in real time. So when you get your vial, you can look at the serial number on it and you can see the history, the provenance of everywhere it's been and whether it has been cold all this time, which is just really cool. So we have that kind of thing. But then we also have, very unrelated to that, is proof of action. being able to prove that you have done something. So for example, AdStacks records impressions on websites. So you have an advertiser that says, I want to advertise something. And you have a website that says, okay, we will show your ads. You pay us to show your ads. This is a huge industry that is just rife with fraud. And AdStacks has come in to reduce the fraud by saying, look, the website can't tell 10 different advertisers, yeah, I showed your ad at this particular time, because you can just show you don't have that much traffic. You couldn't show that many all at once. What you can do is they can record in a way that everyone can see exactly which ads they were showing when. And then all the advertisers can see if they're trying to double booking people, trying to lie and get credit for 2 people at once. And so you can see if they're lying. It completely eliminates that class of fraud. And so by recording what you do in a way that everyone can see it, you eliminate this kind of fraud. As opposed to the old way of doing it, of you just tell each customer individually, oh yeah, I showed your ads, trust me. Oddly enough, that led to lots of criminal fraud. Go figure. And another one that is somewhat similar to both of those would be coupon bureau. So here we're talking about the paper coupon. You cut it out of the newspaper and you bring it into the store or whatever. That industry has an enormous amount of fraud. And also, this was mind-boggling to me, huge inefficiencies. You go spend your coupon at the store, for the store or the manufacturer to get reimbursed, or for the store to be reimbursed by the manufacturer, can take months. What they do is they take these paper things and they put them in big trash bags, ship them off to countries where the labor is cheaper, and over months, human beings go through the pile and record it, and then eventually the person gets paid. And there's enormous fraud.
I can't believe that still happens. Surely everything would just be done on like a Web 2 like digital system, but no, they're still shipping them out to other countries. It's bizarre.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
I have the same reaction with wires. Why does it take days for me to send you a wire when it's ones and zeros going over the internet and I can watch cat videos in real time? Why do I have to wait days for a wire? It just blows my mind.
We were talking to somebody yesterday that had an FX background, and they were saying you would not believe how old-fashioned foreign exchange is and how long things take to be settled. And I thought, well, what are they doing with that money before it's settled? You know, if that's an interesting problem. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about the HBAR token, what it is, and what it's used for?
Sure. And you're right about following the money on that. If you have a system that's inefficient, where money has to sit in one place for long periods of time, guess why there are people that want it to sit in one place for long periods of time?
I think we can all guess that one, yeah.
Yeah. But ledgers really are an improvement there. And we have something, stable coins being used for remittances at Shinhan and Standard Bank that are just mind-boggling how good it is. It really is the future as opposed to wires and as opposed to FX markets. DEXs really blow that out of the water. And we have DEXs on Hedera too. But you were asking about the HBAR. So every L1 layer, every real base layer has to have a cryptocurrency, because that's how you pay for the transactions that actually fund the layer to do its thing. So you have to have a cryptocurrency. Now in something like Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency is basically the whole thing. That's about all it is, although you can store a little bit of information. For Ethereum, it does other things like smart contracts, and ETH is the cryptocurrency that lets you pay for those. So every L1 network has to have a cryptocurrency. HBAR is the Hedera Hashgraph cryptocurrency, and this is what we use. And so it's used for all of those things. When you run smart contracts, they use it. Now, of course, we also allow tokens. You don't have to use HBARs for everything. We allow you to create your own tokens. And of course, you have smart contracts. You can do ERC-20s and ERC-721s. These are standard tokens that run inside of a little program running on top of your network. But we also have native tokens, which are much faster, much cheaper. If I want to send you an ERC-20 token on Ethereum, it might cost me tens of dollars. On Hedera, it will cost 1/10 of a penny, 1,000th of a US dollar. That's what it will cost you to send it. So it's extremely cheap. And that's because we're so fast. We can afford to make it really, really cheap. So we have these tokens that you can create, and you can send them back and forth, and you can do all sorts of things with them. You can even do atomic swaps. I'll give you 10 of my Apple tokens if you give me 5 of your banana tokens, and we'll also give Carol 3 cherry tokens in the process. You can just do this. But we also have HBAR, and that's just the native token.
You talk about the speed of the blockchain, and I know that that's one of the major USPs for what you're doing at Hedera. But one of the pieces I feel that isn't spoken about enough is the carbon footprint for some of these blockchains. And obviously, when you're building a private blockchain, we have a target to be carbon, net zero by 2050. And this is one of the major considerations for corporations around the world now. You guys claim to be carbon negative, and I'd love to sort of quiz you on how that's even possible when building something of this scale.
Well, sure. So you buy carbon credits to offset what you're doing, and then you buy extra and you become carbon negative. But
sure.
The best form of energy is the energy you never use. That's the best form of energy usage. Instead of polluting and then making up for your pollution, the best thing to do is to not pollute in the first place. I mean, so
of course,
everyone says negawatts are the best form, is the greenest form of energy. There's no energy
negawatts, I like that.
than the energy you didn't use. And so it is actually useful to look at what is the actual carbon footprint per transaction for a ledger. And there have been third-party reports published that say we are far below any other ledger. We use far less energy per transaction than any other ledger. Orders of magnitude, many orders of magnitude compared to some. But even compared to other proof-of-stake ledgers, we are far below everybody else. UCL, the University College of London, had a publication on this. And another company did too. Multiple people have had these that say that we are absolutely the best. In fact, even using your Visa card uses 10 times as much energy per transaction.
Gosh.
And so it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
We are using absolutely the lowest energy per transaction. So we have the smallest carbon footprint. And then on top of that, we buy carbon credits. And so we are actually paying to plant trees or whatever that generates the offsets. And so these offsets then make up for the little carbon that we are releasing, makes up for that plus more, so that we're carbon negative. So yes, we are carbon negative, which is great. And even better, we don't use much carbon in the first place. That's an even better thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really encouraging to hear, because it seems to be one of the problems, I think, especially in the blockchain space, that's discussed a lot. Bitcoin's credentials are discussed all the time, and it's an ongoing discussion. But I was also curious to know how important a factor this was when you were building out your governance council. I mean, is this something that corporations are really interested in when thinking about the use of blockchain? I mean, was that kind of high on the agenda for them?
It's interesting. You get the impression that people become interested in things at later points in time. And way back in 2018, it was less of a thing they were talking about, and now it's more of a thing that they're talking about. And we are finding that people are very interested in this. And of course, they're not just interested, are you carbon neutral or negative? They aren't just interested, do you have a low carbon footprint? They're interested, are you actually helping these carbon markets? And there are a bunch of people building carbon markets on top of us and tokenizing carbon credits and tracking them. And this ESG industry, we seem to be a leader in this, of having people build ESG things on top of us. ESG is, are you carbon negative? And also, do you have good governance, and are you good in other ways as well? And so we have a lot of people building these industries, these markets on top of us, which is great. If you can do tokens very cheap and transfer them very fast and have a very efficient market, then it's ideal to be doing that on top of us. And people have even done really clever things. We want to be able to buy and sell carbon credits. That encourages people to do so. We also want to be able to buy and sell green energy itself, which is sort of energy that comes along with the carbon credit attached, because the energy itself was produced from a solar panel or something. And then you also want to be able to combine energy with carbon credits into a merged credit and be able to trade those. And people have built all of that on Hedera. And so you can be buying and selling actual kilowatt hours of energy at the same time that you're buying the carbon credit that makes up for it. And so the two can come as a bundle. And tokens are fantastic for taking things of value in the real world, turning them into ones and zeros that can be traded efficiently, and then bundling them together. And so I'm very, very excited about this. I think ESG marketplaces are one of the biggest use cases that are coming. We didn't even talk about all the different areas of use cases, but that was one of the ones I was going to talk about, because this is a big deal right now. People really care about this.
Well, that whole agenda is being pushed by the World Economic Forum and so forth. So I think you're right. I think you're providing a platform and a solution that a lot of these companies are certainly going to be using. So you've got quite a lot of stuff going on the roadmap at the minute. So you're looking at support for NFTs, enabling community nodes, and well, the list just goes on. So are there any specific things over the next few quarters that you're releasing or working on that you would like to talk about?
Sure. And things like NFTs were on the roadmap in the past. Now they're done.
Okay.
But we have lots of things coming up. I'm really excited about the things that we have coming up. You mentioned community nodes. Yes, we will have people running nodes on the network. And I'm looking forward to that. And with proof of stake, we can still be secure. And we're going down the path that I laid out in videos a while back, where you start with the council members running the nodes, and then you have community members running the nodes that we know about, and then you go to anonymous people running the nodes. It's just 3 stages. And we're going through that. And so that's the next step. Another one that I'm really excited about is state proofs, which no other ledger has the state proofs that we're talking about. There's a ledger that says we have state proofs, but it's a different kind of thing. What we are talking about is the ability for you to say, send somebody some tokens. And then just a few seconds later, we get finality in just a few seconds, and it's true finality. Some ledgers say they have finality even faster, but it isn't actually finality. But true finality, really fast. And then a few seconds later, you can say, hey, tell me my balance, and see if you got the tokens that you were supposed to get in exchange. You can ask any node, tell me my balance, and they might lie to you. You could ask several nodes to try to make sure, well, they probably all didn't lie to me. But wouldn't it be better if it could just give you a cryptographic proof that it's not lying? And that's what state proofs will do. You will be able to ask a question, what's my balance? Get an answer with this little cryptographic proof attached to it, the signatures attached to it and stuff, that prove to you that the entire ledger as a whole agreed. No one computer can lie to you. No small group of computers can lie to you. It's the entire group as a whole, their consensus, their final consensus. They reach finality, proving to you that this is really what your balance is. That's cool. And we have an early version of that right now that's been running for a long time, where our mirror nodes know for sure that we're telling them the truth. So they have the history of everything we've ever done. It is impossible to lie to a mirror node. It has digital signatures from all our nodes that prove to it it's getting the right answer. But that's only when you're getting these big chunks of information. With state proofs, the new version of state proofs, we'll be able to get little chunks of information and prove that it's legit. Now that is cool in its own right. But you know what that enables? That enables ledgers then to talk to each other and send each other messages. And for one ledger to send another ledger a message and say, not only am I sending you this message, but here is the proof that it is truly coming from the ledger as a whole. When you have that, you can do sharding, which is lots of little ledgers that all cooperate to make things faster. Mm-hmm. We won't need that for a while because we're so fast in a single shard. But it also gives you inter-ledger communication. You can take a token from one ledger and move it to another one. The way you do that is easy. You freeze it up on the first one, and then you mint something on the new one, which is a wrapped version of it. The problem is, can I know for sure you really did freeze it? And then when you unfreeze it, can I know for sure you've unfrozen it? And when this one got minted, can I know for sure it got minted? This allows you to do this. It's like oracles between ledgers that are totally believable without having to have a bridge in between that you have to trust. So it's a trustless way of doing interledger communication. And that is what you get when you get state proofs. And so that's one thing that I'm really excited about rolling out in the near future. It doesn't exist anywhere else, but I'm hoping that everybody will, steal our code and do it. I would really like this to be interoperable with everybody else, because this is the way the future has to be. We have to be able to have ledgers talk to each other and know for sure that what they're hearing from the other ledger is true, and have the whole thing happen in seconds, not hours. We have to have that.
I love it. I have a question for you. What drives you? Like, you're so passionate. Like, it's great talking to you. You have fantastic energy. You're so passionate about what you do. You're excited. But what really drives you? Why do you do what you do?
This is actually changing the world. I am excited because this is making a difference. It is going to make people's lives better for the next 100 years. And so we've always said from the beginning, we're building a 100-year project. These aren't just words. The plan from the beginning has been to do, the opposite of a pump and dump, to build something of true value that is a real utility to the entire planet. And let me tell you, we're only seeing the very beginning of how ledgers are going to transform society and the economy and government and everything else. ledgers are going to play a part in every part of society. Now, I'm not saying everything will be done on a ledger, just like not everything is done on the internet. But just like the internet has become part of each single part of the economy and of society and of education and of medicine, everything has the internet as a little part of it. We're going to see ledgers as a little part of everything, because ledgers are needed anytime that you want to be able to trust that things are being broadcasted to the whole world and everyone is seeing it. I want to be able to trust that. I want to make sure that your website's not showing me something different from someone else. And I want to be able to trust that things happen according to the rules. And I want to be able to take things of real value in the world and tokenize them and then be able to trade them and know who owns it and not have to do a title search that takes 2 weeks on your house before I buy it. Right. I want to just be able to buy it and know that I got the real house. I mean, this is something that humanity as a species desperately needs. And we are providing this. And as this rolls out over the next 100 years, ledgers in general, blockchains in general, are going to make things better. You have the unbanked in third world nations that will be banked. You have people that have difficulty selling things that will be able to sell things now and make a living that couldn't make a living. You are going to be changing life for people forever. And, you want your COVID vaccine to know that it's been cold its whole life. And you want to buy cocoa beans and know that they weren't created with slave labor or horrible things. These are the things we're doing. There are people recording Holocaust videos and immutably recording them forever on us so that we will know forever and not forget as a species what has happened. This is what gets me passionate, is because this whole industry of blockchains, and specifically Hedera, is changing the world in a way that makes it a better world. That is what gets me passionate.
Great answer.
We talk on the show about some of the solutions or some of the problems that blockchain is solving now, but we very rarely talk about the things that it's yet to solve. And you're right. I mean, just even like the immutability of data, historical information, market efficiencies, property. I mean, property is one of the most archaic systems out there, I mean, especially in the UK. Yes. It's all done on paper. It's very, very complex. And I hope that blockchains are adopted in some of those spaces, and excited to see how Hedera can play a part in that.
Yes, I agree. You're right. Property is on paper in the United States too. If you want to buy a house, there may be a clerk in the county that happens to have boxes of paper that they have to paw through. Right. It's insane. How long have computers been around? It just blows my mind. But this is what we're doing. We're going to a world where all that insanity goes away. Then we'll have other insanity to try to fix, but one problem at a time.
That's for someone else,
yeah,
right?
I was going to say, you can only solve so many problems. Yeah. Yeah. Should we move on to some of the questions from the community, Ben? Because I know we've got a few. Well, we've got loads actually, but our producer Cal's picked out some of the best ones in our opinion. So
these were just a couple that we selected from Twitter. As you said, we had hundreds come in. But the first one comes from @MoSelector and asks, with the growing NFT scene attracting so many new users to Hedera, are there any projects that you have your eyes on? And do you personally have any NFTs?
I have a couple. I think I own 2 NFTs that were gifted to me. I am not a big investor in this market.
Very similar. I'm in a similar position. I had a few that were given to me and didn't ever buy any at the time.
Yeah, but I am extremely excited about NFTs. And there's a great Saturday Night Live skit about what is an NFT. And what they say is, well, it's a silly picture that we're selling as an NFT. Yeah, that was the beginning. That's what got it started. But that is not NFTs. That's just a little tiny thing you can do. What's important about NFTs, the way it changes the world, is when you take real world things of real world value and you tokenize them, which allows you now to always know who the owner is so that you can buy and sell without a middleman efficiently and quickly and with total security. That's what NFTs are really about. So we have DLA Piper, one of the world's largest legal firms, has created this project to be doing NFTs of real world things of value, real world paintings, real world fine wine, real world real estate, things of value in the real world that are hard to ever know who owns it. I want to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. How would you actually go out and see who owns the Brooklyn Bridge? How would you even know? Fix that problem, but also to allow us to break it up into pieces. Could you buy 1% of the Brooklyn Bridge, even if you could find the owner? Well, maybe not. Maybe you'd have to form a corporation and then have shares in the corporation, and it gets complicated and it gets slow. And then even then, how do you know for sure the person selling you the share really owns the share that they're supposedly selling you? You can Xerox a piece of paper. So they're working on that. And I think that this is really important for the future, is this kind of NFTs. Galaxy is a fun organization. Spencer Dinwiddie, a great athlete, is also a great business person and has been working to tokenize all sorts of things you wouldn't think about, like your shoes. Well, I guess when you're a famous basketball player, your shoes are actually a value in a huge collector community. But more than that, tokenizing things you wouldn't think of. Tokenizing the ability to have lunch with me, or tokenizing the ability to vote on what kind of shoes I'll wear at my next basketball game. These are things that never even existed before. Tokenizing your own future income, all sorts of things that have never existed before. And this is what I think is so exciting about tokenization, is that it's creating markets for whole new things that have never been possible before to buy and sell. And so it makes the world more efficient. It allows people to get things that they would have wanted but weren't able to get in the past. And so Galaxy is really cool for NFTs. And there's lots of other things that are happening with NFTs. There's the DeFi market is another one that started off really silly, but is going to mature into something that is world changing and last for the next 100 years. And we have a bunch of DeFi now being built on Hedera. I see all of these nascent markets that are starting to connect blockchains or DLTs, ledgers, to the real world, making a real impact. I love that.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really grateful that you unpack some of the specific use cases for NFTs, because, I think the wave that we've seen over the last year or so really has been geared around, JPEGs. And I think it's almost become a meme in itself. But actually, there are so many other important use cases which are good to touch upon. Just on to the next question, which has come from Dovis Vi, which is a really broad question. And I'm not sure how you answer this. But when do you think Hedera will reach its full potential? I guess that's really difficult. But do you think, do you see that the distributed ledger technology is going to become, reach a point of being used by the masses? How do you see that timeline?
No question. So this is something that will be used by the masses. This will be used by every company, by every individual, by every startup, by every nonprofit organization. So this is absolutely, ledgers in general are going to be used everywhere, and Hedera is pursuing all of these things. There's the HBAR Foundation. That's an independent foundation that's giving huge grants of HBARs to people to build in all these different areas. So it is growing rapidly. Our industry is growing rapidly. Hedera is growing rapidly. And when will we reach our full potential? Well, when will the internet reach its full potential? 100 years from now? It continues to grow. But it's going to be very similar to that. I think that ledgers will continue to grow forever. When will databases reach their full potential? Well, they're still evolving. But this is really the next evolution of databases. If you think about it, databases used to be a program on one computer that would allow you to store some information. And then they had these multi-server databases that would share it. They call it multi-master. That's not a very good name for it, but multi-server databases where they share the information and any one computer could crash and you're okay. But now we can have multi-party databases where even if one computer is malicious, a hacker gets into it and tries to destroy your database, they can't. That's what a ledger is. That's what a blockchain is. It's a multi-party database. Now, many of them are too slow to really use the name database, but with Hedera, it really is fast enough. You can call it a multi-party database. And so when will it reach its full potential? Well, never, I hope. But how fast is the potential growing? Enormously fast. And what we are doing is growing enormously fast. And this is true for Hedera, and it's true for the entire blockchain industry. And I am just really excited to watch that. As for timelines, I think that you're just seeing an exponential curve right now. And the beautiful thing about the exponential curve is right now is always the knee of the curve. One of the beautiful things on exponential curves is when you zoom out, the knee is still there. And then when you zoom really in on any part of it, there's a knee in the middle of it. You always feel like you're in the middle of it. It's exponential right now. Obviously, everything in the real world becomes a sigmoid. It turns into an S shape and eventually levels off. But we are way far away from any leveling off. Our industry right now is in a growth phase. It's going to last for a long time, I think.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be in this space. I'd like to just ask you a question that we sometimes ask our guests, and I would love to just get your perspective on this. And it's a question about your sort of personal excitement around this space and industry, and what is it that you're most looking forward to? What is the change that you're most looking forward to seeing sort of over the next 100 years?
Okay, in the short term, I'm looking forward to regulatory clarity. That would help.
Right. Yeah. Wouldn't it just?
Possibly not the only person suggesting that might be somewhat helpful. So we're all holding our breath on that. That will come. I do think that their heart is in the right place of the governments around the world, that they will eventually not stamp out the industry, but find a way to regulate it where they don't stamp it out. There was a question, 5 years ago, is the world government just going to stamp us out entirely? And now I think, no, what they're going to do is try to harness it for the good of mankind. They may not do a very good job of that, but they're going to try.
We hope so. We hope.
We hope so. But I think that we're not going to see them just try to wholesale stamp it all out, which is great. But what else am I looking forward to? I am looking forward really to the state proofs and then the interledger communication. And I am hoping that people will steal our code. It's open source. I hope they will steal it and use it to do state proofs as well, so that we have someone to talk to, because the whole industry has to do this. This is part of the maturing of the industry. We have ideas around DREC, decentralized recovery, that is far beyond social recovery, and it is absolutely needed. Look, this is an industry right now where it's only the early adopters using it. You talked about, when is mass adoption going to come? Mass adoption will come when you can use this as securely as you use your bank account app on your phone. And it needs to be as easier to use than a bank account. And right now it is not. And there are a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of scams out there, and it's hard to recognize them if you don't know anything about this industry. There is a lot of ways you can lose all your money. I mean, just losing your key, you can lose your money. I think we underestimate in this industry how big of a mindset change that is. Right now, if you lose your password to your bank, there are ways you can go get it recovered, and the bank can help you. And Hedera gets emails from people that say, "Oh, I lost my key. Would you mind giving me a new one?" Yeah, let me explain. Okay, so as insiders, we laugh. The whole point of this whole enterprise is to not have us have the ability to make you a new key, because if we could, we could steal all your money. But this is a new mindset, and we forget that it is new. That right now, if you lose the key to your bank can get you a new one. If you lose the key to your safe deposit box, your bank can drill it out and get you a new one. Everywhere in society, if you make a mistake, you can get it back. The power of ledgers is also the danger of ledgers. And so we need to find ways to make it safe for people as well. And there's ways of doing that to get your friends to help you, but you have to do it in a way where your friends may not be very reliable. And so there's ways of doing that, where their phones need to be constantly talking to each other invisibly behind the scenes, making sure that it's good. There are lots of things that we can do. So we as an industry need to make ourselves useful to the ordinary person. Grandma needs to be able to use this and not lose their money and not make a mistake that accidentally reveals everything. I knew someone who had the recovery phrase, which is great. Having a recovery phrase is wonderful. It gives you the ability to recover your money when you lose it. And then they emailed it to somebody because they thought they were asking for that. No, we need to get to a world where you understand and where you're prevented from doing things that hurt yourself. So decentralization is a new thing, and we need to get people to understand decentralization and help them with it. And the answer is not go back to centralized. That is not the answer. Right.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I suppose the growth of the centralized space has been, largely due to the fact that, as you say, there are customer service teams, right? There are people that can support and help you when things go wrong. I mean, do you have ideas about how you build that into a decentralized space?
Oh, yes. And we can do it.
Okay,
still being decentralized. No, we do a DREC system where you have DREC on your phone and it connects to other people's phones. Get your friends or maybe even your bankers and your lawyers to help you. They become your helpers, and then they can jointly recover your key for you, or they can jointly spin from cold storage for you. This is an idea that other people have talked about. It's not hard. You do Shamir secret sharing. It's not hard cryptography. It's easy. What's important, though, are some things that no one has been talking about, which is that what if your helpers lose their phone and lose what they've stored for you? You need your phone and their phones to be talking to each other every day, silently behind the scenes, just saying, "Do you still have that information I gave you? Do we need to recreate it for you? Do I need to tell my owner that you have lost your information? The phones need to be talking back and forth and making sure it never gets lost. And we need to make the user interface not have millions of choices for the user. It needs to be very, very simple. I explained this to someone once and they said, ooh, isn't that awfully, condescending? And I said, yeah, I want it to be condescending. I want it to be condescending to me. I don't want to have to think about it. I want to have, belt and suspenders and safety that I don't make any accidental mistakes. So I want it to have very few parameters I can set so that I don't set the wrong parameters. And I actually know this field, but I still want my money to be safe. And we could do the same thing. And so we could have this setup where it's jointly protecting you, and it protects your keys, and it protects your passwords, and it protects all of your secrets, and then it protects your money as well. And you could have this hot storage where I can spend the HBARs or my tokens at any time, but others can recover my key if I lose it. And I can also have sort of lukewarm, coldish storage where I can't even spend it. I need to get all my helpers to approve any particular transaction I do. And we've actually written software that does this, that we're giving away open source as well. But this is the kind of thing we need to do as an industry to help people be able to use this very easily. The other thing, of course, is you make it invisible. You build it into other apps they're already using. They don't even know they're using ledgers. That's, the best ledger is the one that's invisible. You don't even know you're using it. That too.
Fascinating stuff. I'm excited for that future. Leemon, it's been just incredible to have you on the show. I have to be honest, your optimism at a time where the market feels, the whole space feels really quite miserable has been really refreshing. We do our weekly show, and unfortunately the news, at least for the last 8 weeks, has been sort of very doom and gloom, but this has really lifted my spirit. So I just want to say thanks for coming on and spreading some joy.
Oh, I will. And I really feel for people that have been hurt by the current crypto winter, and the pain is real. I really do feel for these people. And this is hurting all of us, but it will end. The crypto winter will end, and the ledger space as a whole has a very bright future. And so I really appreciate you letting me be on with you and talking about this. And the real world is there are people hurting right now, and that is really bad. And the real world is it is going to get better, and that is really good. That is the actual situation.
Yeah, and we're grateful that you're building solutions for a better future. Leemon, as we say, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to, as always, put the links to the website, your social channels into the show notes. And for any of our listeners that are curious to find out more, please do click through and read through some of the amazing work that you guys are doing. But we'll be following the journey very, very closely and looking forward to some of the great developments on the roadmap to come.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, Leemon.
Thank you.
Sure.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could leave a review wherever you're listening. This really does help and allows other people to find us online. You can keep up to date with new releases of the podcast by subscribing and following us on Twitter or Instagram for the latest crypto-related news. Information provided by Crypto Pulse via this podcast, website, social media channels, and any other medium does not constitute financial advice, investment recommendations, or any other type of advice whatsoever. The Crypto Pulse team are not professional financial advisors. Trading and purchasing cryptocurrencies do carry risks, and anybody wishing to partake in such activities should seek professional advice.